All right, welcome class. Today we have Ryan Boeckman talking to us. He is a middle school teacher in the St. Louis area, and he hosts or co-hosts a podcast called My Disney Class. He's also co-written a book, designing Disney-inspired classrooms, and then in the summers he's led personal development trips or professional development trips for teachers in Walt Disney World. And so I wanted Ryan to talk to all of you today about his fandom for Disney, but also what he's doing now. And so with that, Ryan, thank you for joining us. I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thanks to your students for listening here for the next however many minutes. I guess I'll start and give a little bit of history because I do have a unique background, history and how I got in education. My dad was a teacher for many years, 30-something plus years. He taught in my high school and was my varsity basketball coach. And going through high school and even in college, the one thing I knew I did not want to be is a teacher or an educator, because I was like, I want to do something different than my dad did. So I started out pre-med, and then as that kind of unfolded and I kind of explored the pre-med world, I kind of isolated into animal behavior, and I got a degree in biology with an emphasis in animal behavior and a minor in psychology. And I graduated after 4 years and went on to work at Washington University Medical, and I did research there, did immunohistochemistry and brain research, and we worked with schizophrenia and autism, child autism, and Alzheimer's diseases. So we kind of studied the brain. And I did that for several years, and had some undergraduates that worked under me, and my primary investigator, head of our lab, kind of was always talking to me and trying to encourage me to go back and get my doctorate so I could run my own lab. And he said, man, also you do really well with the undergraduates. Have you ever thought about teaching and maybe picking up some classes at Washington University? I said, no, if Dad was a teacher, I just never did. But I did enjoy that interaction with the undergraduates and kind of helping them along in the lab. And just chances through meeting with different people. I actually went out to lunch one day with a person that set the board of education for the state of Missouri, and there was a program going on that asked successful professionals in the science and math fields if they would be willing to career transition into education. They would pay for all the schooling you needed to go, but you would have to work in an inner city school that needed math and science teachers. And something about it was the right timing. And it just felt right, and I made the decision to go into education. I did the program, worked in the inner city schools for a couple of years, and then transferred out to where I'm in now at the Parkway School District and teaching middle school. I always thought I'd be teaching high school, but when I did the program, or when I first started the program, I wanted to do high school, and they didn't have a position open in science for the first time in the St. Louis public schools. And they said, hey, do middle school 1 year, and after that, we'll put you in a high school position. And true to the word, they did offer me a high school position, but it took 1 year, and I fell in love with the middle school kids and their kind of state they are in their development. So I've been at Parkway School District ever since, going on probably 20 years now there. Loved every minute of it, and I kind of pull on my years of research and brain development and science work to teach middle school science with my kids. So so a little bit of a background history. And I think it's good for students in college now. And I think you said a lot of you guys are freshmen. You'll figure it out. I think a lot of pressure going into college. You think you got to find that career real quick and understand what path you're on, but a lot of us go through a kind of curvy road to get there. And I can tell from my experience that once I made that decision and I started teaching, I knew almost instantly that was the right choice. It just felt right, felt like a good move. So career-wise, I was there. So getting into my Disney side of things, I mean, it starts way back, I guess, when I was in grade school. Um, a lot of us get that assignment in grade school. You got to read a autobiography and write a report and do that. And I can't honestly tell you how I chose Walt Disney as my person to do and highlight and uh, do my little presentation on, but I did. And, you know, I kind of read all about him, and I was hooked from there because I've always just been drawn the science side of me to people that are innovative or creative and that, you know, analytical type thinkers, people that do those type of things just fascinates me because I strive to be one of those type of people. So you're, you know, as a scientist, you're thinking there's got to be a system to the way these guys work and create. So, you know, that could be it because I'm a big Steve Jobs fan and Fred Rogers and all these guys that have just created things because they saw a need for them and were there. So that's where it started. I'm really a Walt Disney fan, and I would read books about him. When I was a kid, I was lucky enough to, my dad took us down, me and my brother, one year to Walt Disney World, I think 1982. So I got to do a trip down there and, you know, and just get so overwhelmed by the story and the innovative. I love Epcot. It's one of my favorite parks. So all the innovation that's there and the highlighting is just very inspirational. And then you know, as I grew up and, you know, I still read different things that were Disney related. I read a lot about Imagineers, Imagineering books like, you know, people like Bob Gurr have written and Marty Sklar and, um, you know, even now I'm still reading. I read tons of books. Lee Cockrell, he writes books, and I know you've had him on. And he writes books about management and style and leadership. And you know, I just read those books, and I find so much inspiration in them that I can apply to my life and my career. That, you know, I'm just always kind of inundating myself with kind of some Disney philosophies and Walt's kind of foundations that, you know, it's always been there. Then and in that learning spirit, I do go around to a lot of different conferences, and I've spoken at conferences, but I also attend and go to learn. And I was at a local educational technology conference here, and I heard Dr. Holly de Blasi speak just because he had a topic that was interesting to me. It wasn't Disney related, but you know, he happened to mention that he had a love for Disney. And then months down the line, I was at another conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and Hai was there again. And so this time, after I listened to him speak, I waited around and went up to him afterwards and just kind of introduced myself, said, hey, I heard you mention Disney a couple times. I've always been fascinated by Disney. I read a lot of books. I use a lot of the philosophies in teaching in my classroom and working for, you know, different professional development angles to help better education. And he said, oh my gosh, I'm a huge Disney. Let's go have a cup of coffee or a drink and talk about this. And we did, and that spun into a dinner that night, and it was like 4-hour dinner where we just talked about all our ideas and the things. And it's just kind of interesting because, you know, we said, well, if the two of us have met, there's surely other educators out there that have the same thoughts, same philosophies, same kind of things. Maybe we should try building this community up. And just at the time, we were thinking more of just for our own, you know, benefit of you know, becoming a community and helping each other out. And from there, we met a group of, I guess it was about 4 other educators from across the country, a couple in Missouri where I'm from, one down in Florida, one in Texas, and I'm trying to think. I think that's the main states. And we came together and we decided we were going to put together the first Ed Camp Magic, a Disney themed ed camp, which is a free 1-day professional development for teachers that's put on all over the country, actually all over the world. And we said, well, let's do this and see what happens. And we organized it. We got a school down in Orlando, about 10 minutes off of Walt Disney World property, called Windermere Prep, that was willing. They've been, just so happens they were wanting to do a ed camp, but they just didn't have the time and the resources to put it on. They didn't have the people that could take that on. And we were the people that wanted to do it, and they had the space. So it was a nice mutual partnership, and they've been awesome. We've done it for 5 years. uh, and from there, it just, I mean, we have about 300 attendees that will come in, all looking to uh, kind of learn about the Disney philosophies and ways Disney's can help education from anywhere from elementary, kids all the way up through, college professors that have attended and worked with. Um, from there, I've listened to a ton of Disney podcasts, and podcasts in general. And I was like, man, I think, I want to do a podcast. And I kind of threw it to Howie. I said, have you ever thought about it? And he's like, not really, but let's talk about it. And we came up with a mission and kind of a purpose and an audience of why we wanted to do the podcast and how we wanted to approach it. And so My Disney Class was born from that. And we created a web page and looked in. Neither one of us were familiar with podcasting as far as the behind the scenes part. So we did a lot of time looking and watching YouTube videos on how to record videos, best way, audio quality, those kind of things. And we kind of built that brand up. And from there, that brand got a lot of attention in the education community and kind of even broader than that. And we were contacted by a publisher from Theme Park Press Publishing, and he kind of said, kind of likes what we're doing. Have we ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I'm a science writer, so my writing is very trimmed down and to the point, and it seems super daunting. I mean, but I was, Howie kind of talked me into it, and we pitched a couple ideas, or Howie did, to the publisher, and they rejected all of them. And they're like, nope, we don't like that idea. We don't like that idea. And then finally I said, have you ever thought about just focusing on one of the theme parks, and it could be a series, and doing lessons for each of the attractions? And we said, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And then we had to boil down and pick a theme park, and why not start with one of the most magical and Magic Kingdom. And that's what we did. We basically, every chapter, there's a few chapters in the beginning, kind of how to use the book and some background about Walt and his philosophies and some of our philosophies. But pretty much the book is, every chapter is a attraction in a land, and we've gone about giving background to the story of what the Imagineers' intent was with the attraction, so the teacher would get, or the educator would get, a little bit of a background if they'd never been, or not as fan crazy as we are. And that was kind of a tough part, because I tend to think, like, when I talk to other Disney fans, especially some, like you mentioned, Lou Mangello being on here. I've talked to Lou several times, and I'm going, how does this guy know all this stuff? I call myself a Disney fan. So I kind of tend to lower myself in the Disney ranks of trivia knowledge. And then I get in the general public, and people are like, this guy's insane. So he just knows way too much about Walt Disney and these kind of things. And so it was kind of this hard balance in the book, because am I talking down to my audience, or writing down to my audience, or is this too over their head? So it's trying to find a balance of giving them enough background, enough tidbits, but then spurring it into looking at education through this Walt Disney lens, and how you can take that, look at some different ways of teaching, different philosophies, take that spin, the Disney magic, the Disney kind of power they have in storytelling and delivering this lesson in a way, at least inspire them to teach lessons. So we give lesson examples from each of the attractions. And then kind of along the line, I'm a little bit out of chronological order, because we did some class teaching as well. We teamed up with Professor Jerry Johnson of Buena Vista University, and we taught a couple grad level classes, kind of to education majors, about using Disney philosophies and core values to apply to education. And we did those online, and that spun into people wanting to go down and get more of an experiential learning experience, where we guide them through the parks and kind of take them through a hands-on 5-day immersive learning experience in the parks. So last year we had about 10 educators. In June, we took down for a week. We had a college special ed teacher, college level from England, that flew over and joined our group. We had teachers that were elementary teachers, one from Alabama. We had some instructional coaches and admin that joined us, and another college professor from right there in Florida that all joined us, and we kind of took them through this immersive learning experience. Each day was kind of themed. We went to a different park. We'd get up about, we join about 7:30 in the morning, have a breakfast together somewhere on site, talk through kind of the day's learning, and then we jump on in our cars, drive over to the park, whatever it was that day, and that theme would be carried out with some lessons until about noon or 1 o'clock that day, and then we let them go enjoy the park, which is, it's hard to, as teachers, you got to recognize what you're up against. And when you're in a Disney park, even us adults, hard to keep their attention for all day long when you got attractions and churros and all sorts of good stuff around. So we usually cut off about noon or 1 o'clock, and then reconvene the next day. So kind of the background history there.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And for students, you have the link to the podcast and the link to the book on the syllabus if you're interested in looking into either one of those, especially if, as Ryan said, if you are thinking about teaching, if you are a education major now, those would be great resources. If not, it's always fun to see kind of different perspectives on all of this. So if, as a form of some follow-up questions, I know you mentioned your interest and kind of love for Disney came from being interested in the innovative aspect of it and what Walt Disney stood for, and then what the company stood for. So, and you mentioned Epcot being your favorite park, or possibly your favorite park at least.
Yeah.
If you had to pick an attraction that you, one, enjoyed the most, what would it be? And then two, an attraction that is, in your mind, your technical, the technical way you look at it, kind of the most interesting or engaging, what would those be?
That's, yeah, good question for sure. One I enjoy the most, man, so it's so hard. She probably into through fandom. It's so hard to say. It's like picking your favorite kid, I guess. But I go with Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my all-time favorite attractions. I ride it way too many times, even for my wife's standards. She's likes it too, but she'll say, "Just go by yourself." And so that one, first, it's a classic. Obviously, it is one that Walt got to see, and a lot of great Imagineers worked on at Disneyland. Um, Two, it's the story. I mean, there's a little interview of Walt talking about it. And he talks about how, you go down a waterfall to enter this land. And of course, you got to rise up a waterfall to get out. So he thinks that way, he thinks about a beginning, middle and end, the story, and the way they kind of, you ride through that as the water ride, the boat ride. And it just, it just tells a story in the way every way you turn and look, that's been thought about.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that aspect of it. It's just a fun ride. I love the lighting and the way they do the fire, and even simple mechanics of the women chasing the pirates with the broom on a little circular.
Yeah.
There's just easy mechanics, but it tells such a great story. You don't have to overcomplicate it. So that's one of my favorites of all time. I kind of feel the same way about Peter Pan, though it's a very short ride. Just the idea that they've said, "Hey, let's not run a track on the bottom with this boat. Let's hook it up and run it. Let's attach from the top." It's a simple idea, but it never been done, and so they created that. So again, that's a lot of my passion and my love for Disney goes back to these guys that were, working at one day they're working on theater sets, most of them at Walt Disney Studios, and then the other day, Walt's like, "Hey, I want to build a theme park. Come over here and make this stuff." Or like the Bob Gurr story, where he was an automotive guy and he read a couple books and and published some things about automobiles. And somebody said they're building Disneyland, said, hey, we want to design a car for this Autotopia ride. And they said, and Walt said, you guys know anybody that would be? And they're like, oh, read a couple articles from this guy. He sounds like a pretty good expert. We'll call him up. So they call him up, and Bob's working on designing cars and the monorail and all that stuff. So they're just, and he never designed a monorail in his life before.
And
monorails are around.
he ended up designing the Matterhorn also.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the system for the Matterhorn.
Yeah. So that stuff just fascinates me. These guys were around doing that. I mean, just seeing what works, and they just created these great things. But Walt always guided him, had that great vision for story and how things should be told. And he always thought about the audience member being so important, and who are we designing this for? It wasn't personal. It was, not how can we do this the best or easiest, or, the most, bang for our buck. It was always about the guest experience. So I've always loved that. Technically, the technical, I'm just blown away by Flights of Passage over at Animal Kingdom. I mean, I really did not think I was going to enjoy that as much as I did back when the hype about it being built and Avatar Land, and I had seen the movie, but I'm not a huge fan of the movie. But I went on that ride, and it's one of those rides where, and I'm not a big emotional guy, and I don't cry at the drop of a hat, or maybe I'm getting more emotional as I get older. I don't know, but and I didn't cry on this ride either. So spoiler alert, but it made me smile. Like, just generally, I was beaming. I was just smiling on the way up. I was like, gosh almighty, they've taken me. I know I'm sitting in a seat of some type, and I'm not really moving, I'm not flying, but it just takes you there, and you really feel like you're flying on this Banshee through this incredible land. It's amazing. And so that all the technical wise of that, and kind of going back to Soarin', because a lot of people say it's a more juiced up version of Soarin'. I love the story with Soarin' too, how the guy basically was trying to come up with this attraction, the vehicle system, how this is all going to work, and how you're going to load all stuff. And he's over at his parents' house and says, you saw my Connect set, and I think it's up in the attic. Runs up to the attic, pulls out his old childhood Connect set, and builds the model of Soarin's load vehicles and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It kind of, as a science nerd in me, it brings me back to like the Apollo 13 story, where they they're dying, and they have to build something to scrub the air of carbon dioxide with a sock, a box, and duct tape, and whatever else they got laying around there to make this filter. That stuff just blows me away. So I don't really know the workings behind Flight of Passage, how that all goes down. I know a little bit because I'm so nosy that I'll ride an attraction, and I will look backwards. I'll spoil it for myself. I'll look all around at the mechanisms and stuff like that, which and try to figure it. So I know a little bit of what's going on, but I don't understand all the mechanics to it for sure. And I think Disney's probably pretty protective on that. I do. It's, again, it'll show in my fandom and my science nerdom a little bit. I do go in and read patents and stuff that Disney puts out. They're public knowledge, so you can glean some stuff. It's definitely not as interesting as some people, like when I tell them, like, oh yeah, I saw this thing they're doing, and there's a projection system, and a lot of it is speculated to be for the new Star Wars hotel kind of stuff. And I've read all of that, and I got all excited about it. And somebody that's less a Disney fan was like, oh, I love Star Wars. And they started reading, and they're like, this is this is boring, but I like it because I'm like, oh, I don't understand all of it because I'm not an engineer, but I tweak it into a little bit and like it. So yeah, those would be my top, I guess, right now.
Okay. The second question is, when you were on property, and we'll focus at Walt Disney World. When you're on property, what is one thing you have to do, whether that's going to a park, going to an attraction, going to a restaurant, something like that? What's one thing you have to do, and why, in your mind, why do you think you have to do that?
Uh,
one
good,
particular thing?
yeah, good question. Gosh, I've been so lucky I get to go. I definitely don't underappreciate the fact that I've been through all these professional developments and different things, and I've been down like the last 5 years in a row, and a couple times, multiple times in the same year. So I'm so lucky and get to do things. So I don't feel like it's like walking out of the park like I did when I was a kid and be like, well, this will be it for
Mhm.
until I'm, who knows, I'm an adult maybe or whatever. But I do have to ride the TTA. That's just something I do every
Mhm.
time. It's nostalgic for me. It's nothing, thrills about it really. It's a track and a train, but it goes back to my love for Walt. It's a Walt thing and his idea of the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, and that this was going to be part of it, a way of part of the transit system that was going to take people around and move them and stuff. And you get that
Mhm.
brief glimpse of the model of it, or a partial part of the model, as the track goes by, and you get to go through Space Mountain. And so that's one I have to do. I always do it. We definitely don't miss it. I mean, I could list off a bunch of things I don't miss either. I definitely don't go to Walt Disney World and don't ride Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah.
or Peter Pan's Flight. I mean, but TTA's got the most meaning behind it, really.
Yeah.
So that one's the best.
Yeah. Whenever I go, Peter Pan's Flight is always one that I have to do. That, and if I'm in Epcot, and we'll see the future of this. But if I'm in Epcot, I go to the Imagination Pavilion, because the first time I went, um, or the first time I at least have pictures of it in '87. I have pictures with Figment and the big Figment doll and everything, and he's always kind of. So I started looking into, what does that mean, and it's this idea of imagination and never letting your imagination go. So that's something that we talk about in this class, and we try to pass that on and kind of give the lesson that, look, if you're having fun with what you're doing, you do a better job at it. You enjoy it more, and that ultimately comes out as a better end product for you. There's two more things that I was thinking. As far as you mentioned, um, you obviously approach this from an education perspective and a technical perspective. So when you were in a park, and you mentioned kind of looking around at rides and looking and trying to see different things, how rides are put together. But when you're walking through a park, let's say you're walking through the Magic Kingdom or Epcot, what are you looking for? Some people are looking for the churros, or they're looking for the desserts. Some people are looking for specific attractions. But other people have told me they're looking for just to relax and kind of the overall atmosphere. From your perspective, what do you look for when you're in a park?
Yeah. This is a battle for me because um, there are definitely times I want to go back and just go to the park and enjoy it, kind of through my kid lens and stuff. And I think that's a part of the reason I do like Peter Pan's Flight. Is a story, I never want to grow up kind of things. That's true for me there. And I kind of have used this analogy. I've been in sports my whole life. My dad was, like I said, my varsity basketball coach, and he was a varsity baseball coach, and had retired from baseball before he got to high school. But my brother is younger than 3 years younger than me, and we kind of battled it out. So sports has been a big part of our life. I went on and played football in college. Um, and so all that, I enjoy that part of sports and athletics a certain way, and I had a certain lens that I viewed that through as a player. And then when I went to teaching, I started coaching football and basketball, and I the lens flipped. My coaching lens now, it's different, and all the way I look at it. So now when I watch a basketball game, like a college basketball game or something, I totally watch it, and I'm watching what the plays are, how they ran this, how they got this guy open off a screen. I will rewind it back and draw it up, and why did that coach call a timeout at that point? I didn't care about the stuff when I was a kid playing. I just was like, man, look at that dunk. Oh, that was ridiculous, that kind of shot. Or or whatever else. And it's kind of been the same way with Disney for me. It's you know, I go now, and what I do really, so honestly, what I am most of the time looking for is I'm looking for inspiration to
Mhm.
bring back to my classroom. And I'll stop and take pictures of all sorts of stuff, signs. Uh, I'll think, how can I use this for my classroom, or how they told this story? Can I flip this and do this, or how can I make this a design thinking challenge? Can I think for my classroom, or what facts can I pick up? I'm a annoyance, I'm sure, to some cast members at times. I'll ask them a lot of questions about stuff, and kind of talk to them. I mean, I talked to a guy. We were staying at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and he was um, from some part of Africa there in a student exchange program. And I talked to him about his home country almost an
Mhm.
hour. And my wife's like, "You got to leave this guy go. I mean, he's got a job, you know." So, but I was like, man, I could love to bring this cultural aspect back to my students a little bit. So I spent a lot of time looking through that. Now, I don't have any kids of my own, but my brother has three little ones, and we've taken them to Disney now twice. We've gone 2 trips, and that's helped bring it back to the kid, because now I can experience through them,
Mhm.
especially their first time there and never seeing it, experience it. That brought a lot of that back and helped me kind of reconnect with that. So I'm trying to do a better job of when I go, just to experience it that way. But it's hard because I do also, when I take educators through the park and stuff, um, I'm thinking about their time and what and obviously they have paid for it, and I'm trying to give them a quality experience. So I'll also think about, okay, what is the what's the best way to go from point A to point B? So at least amount of steps for these guys. So I'm thinking logistics too. So it's hard, but all the time thinking, okay, we could stop here, we could talk here. This is a good bang for your buck, kind of thing. Or just looking at, like, oh my gosh, there's such a crowd here. If I had my group with me, this would be an annoyance to them to try to get through here. So what's another way we could get to the same point? So yeah, I look at a lot of that kind of stuff now. It doesn't take it away from me, because I do enjoy the backside. And, like, some people say don't spoil the magic, like behind the scenes kind of tours and stuff, backstage stuff. That can ruin it for a lot of people. They say. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff, because it just enhances it for me.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. And the last thing, before we let you go, just any other comments, observations you have about your fandom, the parks, the current situation, or anything like that before we let you go?
Well, I was going to tell you, I am also a Figment fan. I went in '82, so I think I'm probably a little bit older than you. Um, and I just remember the Dreamfinder, that whole attraction.
Mhm.
That's very special to me, that attraction. So you hear all the rumors that's changing, and obviously it's since I went in '82, it is changed. Track is shortened and things have changed, but I still love it. Go on it all the time. I have I have it right here. I don't know if you have see if I can do this without making the background show up. Have
The
you
the
read the
the comic?
series?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the comic series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got that. There we go. Can kind of see it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work well with the background. I've got that nearby. I love that series. I've definitely got some plush
Yeah.
comments around. Our plush figments around and stuff. And I do go to that. We go on that one every time too. It's an easy one to get on, luckily now.
Yeah.
But I go in and go on that attraction all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just go ahead.
You going when you went, you interacted with Ron Schneider, but when I
Yeah,
went the first time, he had already left the company, um,
yeah,
and so that was it was great getting to meet him and kind of seeing that aspect of it and hear that. So yeah,
yeah,
Figment is such a fun character anyway. The whole story of how he was created and how his name came to be and everything from Magnum PI. It's just
yeah,
so
yeah. Mark Davis and those guys. I can't think of the guy's name now because I'm on the.
Tony Baxter.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Tony Baxter. Those guys back then that were kind of big in the Epcot and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, People make fun of it now because it's very trippy and a lot of that. But the foundation what they built on is it's still good stuff. I mean, it's there's no uh, the whole, like you said, the whole piece about imagination, using your imagination, being creative. That's so valuable. I mean, when I talk about innovators, people, that's what they're good at. I mean, they can
Hmm.
look at things in a different way and see it completely different. And that's kind of stuff I think in the future. I mean, it's here now, but definitely in the future, in any field you're in. That's why I tell people like, well, you do Disney education. Is your stuff just for like elementary kids? And I'm like, no, this stuff is, there's so much there. There's so many levels to the onion. Don't picture it as like these cute little characters and princesses, and that's what it's all about. There's so much more to it, and things like inspiring innovation, creativity, um, looking at problems differently. How's that not apply to, any job that you're in? That's going to set you apart. So
Hmm.
even if you're building widgets for some kind of mass machinery, if you can look at it differently and bring that company to a higher efficiency rate, you're going to accelerate through the company. I mean, they're going to
Hmm.
value you. So, I always tell people, whether it's education or whatever, um, the more tricks you have in your bag and the more tools, the more useful you are, no matter what, the more valued you are to somebody in a company.
Hmm.
Unless you're running the company and you are this, the owner of it all, you're working under somebody. So
Yeah.
you need to be able to be useful and do that. And so, you know, I just think those kind of things those guys did are still true. There's a lot of good lessons to be learned, and that's why I read a lot of books that like Career Magic from Lee Cockrell. I mean, that's yes, he's a Disney um, person, but his stuff he talks about, a lot of it he references back to the Marriott and his time in the hotel industry and customer service that he took the Disney company. And I look at that and go, well, I'm in customer service too. I have families in a community and I have students and I'm servicing. So how can I take lessons from that, learn, and apply it to what I'm doing and improve that? So as
Hmm.
Walt would say, always looking to plus it. So
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. But I could talk. Yeah, I could talk for Disney for hours. I love it. It's passionate. For me, I'm not, you know, I am a Disney first, so I'm not anti-Universal or anything else. I've gone and I enjoy it. Now my partner in crime, uh, Howie DeBlasi, he's a anti-Universal person for sure. So it's I kind of talk to him about stuff, but I think a lot of those guys. Like, again, my background is I love the Imagineers. I love the people kind of creating the magic. I love the experience too. Um, a lot of those guys have worked for Disney, worked for Universal.
Hmm.
Universal, it's such a trade commodity. Those people that how could you not like those guys over there and what they've done with like Harry Potter,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's incredible. So um, I like all that stuff in the fandom world. And the only thing I don't haven't experienced is the Disney cruise line because I'm
Hmm.
getting really motion sickness and seasick. So I was trying to drag me on there, but I just don't want to spend the whole time in the cabin, in the in the
Yeah.
restroom or something. It won't be a fun trip. So I've done a lot. I've got to experience a lot. I've been out to Disneyland. I've gotten to meet a lot of former Imagineers. Brian Collins works with us on a lot of projects. He does the professional development with us and teams up on there. And we have a Facebook page that he hosts called
Hmm.
Educators Who Love Disney, and worked with him. And I've got to talk to Lee several times, and he's been on our podcast. Uh, Lou Mangel, you mentioned, who's a big Disney personality and podcaster, and I think probably more than podcaster. I don't know what you classify him as, but a Disney royalty, I guess. But yeah, and so it's been fun, and I enjoy it. And I think you mentioned too, you always want to do something that you love or you like. It makes it more interesting, and it's been a way to take a passion of mine and take two passions of mine, education and Disney, and these kind of creative ventures to tie it all together. So when I do stuff like this or I do my podcast, I'm it's not work to me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the key. You hear all these people talk about, well, if you're successful when it doesn't feel like you're working, and when I'm teaching and I'm doing this kind of stuff, it doesn't feel like work to me.
Yeah, that's great.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us.
All right.
And like I said, if anybody has any questions, I will have them reach out to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us, and enjoy.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
All right.